53. Same sources of resistance, and yields went up to 50. As you can see again in this field, our nematode population went way down from that 60. Also in that field, and this was replicated 6 times, I planted Beck 289, which is 437654. And remember, I said I had problems with yields with this source of resistance. I only got 46.6 bushel. It's an increase, 6 bushel. But you can see my nematode population went all the way down to 18. And an awful lot of our work, when we use that source of resistance, both mechanisms, we get a 0, nothing. So now I have another exam question for you. What type of SCN is present in this field, and what should you have planted? You don't pass on that answer, or you're going to? Okay, let's look at it. A type 2 will reproduce. Type 2 relates to 88788, and it will lower yields, and it will reproduce. So it didn't lower the yields much here, but it was reproducing, so you're going to have a nematode problem the next time you come. So it's a type 2. Okay? And I would then probably, the next time I go back to that field, I would take something with a 548402 in it. Because I know that I'm getting nematode reproduction on that, and I know I got a little bit higher yield in that field. Now, when we first started doing this type of research, I really like to give seed company people heartburn. What I do is I take a handful of seed out of every bag from my experiments, and I put it in a hopper and go out there and plant it. I gave it a scientific name. I called it a multivar. And guess what? I decided to do that again last year in this field. 6 replicates of it. And as an ecologist, I believe in diversity. Guess what happened? Got my highest yield, 54.3 bushel, in a field with my susceptible 40.5, and my nematode population came down quite a bit to 742, what I predicted. So when I first started doing that, you know, I got all kinds of comments. But now if you look at it, the plant breeders are putting in multiple sources of resistance. We don't need to talk about that anymore. We could probably talk about that bottom line and why for a long period of time. Anybody seen this in any of your fields here in Sanilac or Huron County or Macomb County? Good. Nobody raised their hands. I ignored it for 10 years. I basically said, oh, boy, that's a serious nematode problem. This is sudden death syndrome. It's caused by a fungus, Fusarium ligniforme. Very characteristic greening around the veins, surrounded by yellow and then a brown necrosis. It can reduce yields in spots or entire fields. It's been known in southern Illinois for about 25 years. We still have lots of questions about sudden death syndrome. Maybe we'll have them all worked out by the time it gets here. If you go to your seed catalog where you have that one column about SCN resistance, you'll find another column that says SDS tolerance. And the seed companies are beginning to know a lot more about SDS and the mechanisms for that tolerance. So based on what I observed in 2009, in Van Buren County, I picked a great research site. And this site has a very high, very aggressive population of nematode, and a very high, very aggressive population of the SDS fungus. When I went in there, in 6 replicates again, and planted the nematode susceptible, you can see that rectangular piece going down there with the walls of the resistant variety next to it. As a researcher, you only get spectacular results like that 2-3 times in your entire career. And look what I got. 15.97 bushels per acre. My projection was 0. I didn't think I'd bother to take a combine in, but somebody was able to sweep up enough beans to get 15 bushel. in that particular plot, or site, we planted DF181N, which is a PI 548402 by 88788. Look what I got, right to the row. They were drill planted beans, okay? More than triple yield, 51.46 bushels per acre. So at this particular site, in 2010, I was able to solve the SDS problem in an SCN infested site with a nematode resistant variety. We don't know the relationship between the nematode and the fungus. Maybe the nematode's making the plant more susceptible. There's another hypothesis that the fungus is a weak pathogen of the nematode, and then the fungus survives in the nematode out there in the soil. That remains to be seen, but that's being researched. So, doing it in one field's fine, but could I do it in another? And over there in that Macomb County plot, we also had SDS. I didn't expect to have it there. And with our susceptible 41.4 bushels per acre, when we used the same source of resistance, but with a Pioneer variety, 50.2 bushels per acre. So in 2 locations in Michigan, the same year, I was able to control SDS with a good nematode-resistant variety. I'm not saying you do that in all fields. Most places we find SDS, there are nematodes, but SDS can be present without the nematodes. And whether or not the genes in these varieties have linkage to SDS resistance, I don't know. But the data were fairly rewarding. I thought you needed to see it. Questions on SCN or SDS before I take my last 5 minutes for other things?
Does SDS affect dry beans?
Does SDS affect dry beans? Wow, you guys are so great today of asking me questions I haven't gotten before, and I don't know. I've never heard that it will. Where's Martin? We just have a question for you. Okay, and I answered, I don't know, so you're allowed to too. Will SDS affect dry beans?
I don't think so, but I don't know.
Yeah, that would be sort of my, we'll look at it. If the answer is yes, we'll let you know. Otherwise, the answer is no. But SCN will. Any other questions on these?
How much will rotation?
How much will rotation? Rotation is far better for preventing a problem to begin with, okay, than afterwards. Most of our rotation crops will keep the population stable, but it would be years to get it down. You can get it down best with a 437-654 resistant variety. And I recommend, on that page 20, where I say don't use the 548402 until you have a type 4 variety, that's my old philosophy. Among scientists, do you conserve your resistant genes, use one up and then have another one and use it up, etc.? You know, that's one philosophy, rotating it. I now believe that if you have a soybean cyst nematode problem, a new one, and if you have a high-yielding 548402 with both mechanisms of resistance, go in there with everything you got the first year and knock that population back as far as you can. And then don't use that variety, that source of resistance again. Come back with the single mechanisms of resistance. And that's a change in my philosophy in the past 18 months, and it's based on research data. But I don't have time to talk about that today.
If you had a field that had SCN in it, and you were in a position where you could rotate out of soybeans, say you had 6,000.
6,000 rotate out.
If you were out for, say, 4 to 5 years, what
if you had 6,000 and you're out for 4 or 5 years, my best guess is you might be down to around 500 or so. And that's the sort of the margin between low population, where it's your call, and where you need to use a resistant variety. So, in other words, prevention and getting the population back with the resistant varieties are our two solutions at the moment. Yes, sir?
Any progress in insecticide and pesticide for it?
any progress in insecticides or pesticides and nematicides for this is a tough nematode. Okay? With the potato farmers in Michigan, we fumigate with metham, vapan. It's $300 an acre. That probably doesn't interest you. When we are working with the ornamental growers on the nursery stocks, it's either methylbromide tart or methyl iodide, and that's getting up towards $3,000 an acre, and that probably interests you less. Okay? With the seed treatments, okay, that are being marketed now for nematodes, my results show that cyst nematode's too tough. Okay? We used to have some carbamates and organocarbamates and organophosphates that would do this job, but they're not working as well as they used to. So the resistant varieties at the moment. Okay? I'm going into seed treatments in my last 3.5 minutes. Yes, sir.
With your soybean nematode levels, moderate, low, or high, at what level do you recommend getting them typed?
At what level do I recommend getting them typed? I don't think the level of getting them typed is as important as, I know I have nematodes, I planted a resistant variety, and it didn't respond the way it has in the past on my farm, or the way I thought it should. That's the way I would do it at the moment. Maybe that wasn't a very proactive answer, but I don't think it's a population thing. It's sort of the response that you're getting. One more? Okay, that's the beginning of the talk for next Thursday. Oh, SCN will do dry beans, I already said that. Sugar beet cyst nematode. We're now, for the first time, beginning to get good sugar beet cyst nematode resistant varieties. We've had a few resistant varieties for the past 6, 7, maybe 8 years. They were the first generation stuff. Right now we're having a major impact. Thursday I'll be showing you data from the trials this year that the nematode resistant varieties are right at the top. Sugar beet cyst nematode is a close cousin to soybean cyst nematode, but a different critter, a different species.